What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Rappin With ReefBum. I'm your host, Keith Berkelhamer, and today I welcome Carlos Chacon from CoralVue. Carlos is the IT manager at CoralVue. He's also part of the product development team as well as head of product support department. From 2001 to 2010, he was the moderator at Reef Central, and his 75-gallon tank was the Reef Central Tank of the Month for January 2001. He was also a webmaster for Reef Keeping magazine during its early years. And Carlos is also very visible on CoralVue's YouTube channel, CVTV, and also hosts live streams as well. So, Carlos, you know what I'm dealing with here in this live stream. I'm juggling multiple roles here. I'm the tech guy, I'm the moderator, I'm the host. But anyway, Carlos, welcome to the show. I'm really psyched that for you to be a guest.
Thank you, thank you. We usually, when we do a live stream, we have a team of people that take care of the overlays and the images and everything. So we did it once, one person. It was like, wow, I can't do this.
This is the guy right here. This is it. One-man show. A one-man.
Big kudos to you, because that takes a lot to be able to do that. Yeah, it takes a lot of attention.
Hey, so everybody, welcome to the show, and thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate it. So Carlos and I are going to have a little conversation. We're gonna talk reef, and we're gonna talk about. Carlos has his own personal reef tank. We're gonna talk about that, and Carlos was also very kind to shoot some video of that tank. So he's gonna talk about it while we're showing the video. But we're also gonna talk a lot about CoralVue and the products and recent releases and potentially upcoming product releases. So feel free to ask questions. We are very privileged to have Carlos as a guest here, and it's a great opportunity to ask away. So, Carlos, first of all, I hope you and your family are staying safe and doing well. These are really crazy, nutty times.
Yeah, we are. It's just two of us, my wife and I. So we are kidless family. And my wife has gone back to work about a month or a month and a half ago. She works retail. So it's been a little difficult for her. It still amazes me how many people don't want to wear a mask. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, or if we want to get into that. But
we're gonna get political here. Is that what we're gonna do?
No, I believe in the mask.
I agree with you.
I believe in the mask, so it's been good for her, and it's been good for us. It hasn't changed much for me since I work from home. I've been working from home for the last six years. So for me, it was kind of like, just the hard part was actually having my wife here for the first couple months, because it takes a particular person to be able to work from home.
Yes. I've been primarily working from home myself as well, and yeah, no, spending a lot of quality time with the wife. So that's a good thing and it's a bad thing, I guess. But
Yeah, last week I had to go and visit my coworker Jeremy, and it was funny because I told my wife the week before, it's like, hey, I'm gonna go down to Jeremy's, and she goes, well, I have I have off on Tuesday, and I go, you want me to go on Tuesday? And she goes, please go, leave me in the house alone, because she has not, when she goes to work, I'm by myself, but when she's off, I'm here. So it was pretty funny for her to say, get the hell out of here and give me some alone time.
Yeah, I've heard similar stories, for sure. So Carlos, every show I always ask my guests how they kind of got started into the hobby or into the business. So I know I talked about at the beginning your involvement with Reef Central and Reef Keeping Magazine, and obviously you're part of CoralVue. But yeah, how did you get into it? I'm assuming you got into it as a hobby first before you kind of started, working for Reef Central. So what's your story there, Carlos, in terms of how you got into this wonderful reef keeping hobby of ours?
I think everybody's. I mean, my story is pretty similar. Everybody at some point when they were kids, your dad arrived with a fish tank. We went fishing one time and caught a bunch of fish, small fish, and you're a kid, you can't fathom killing the fish, so we kept them and put them in a tank, and they survived for a long time. Considering now what I know now and how bad that fish tank was, I'm surprised those fish made it. But that's how it started, and then I grew up, went to college and stuff, and then one day I just said, let me do a saltwater tank. Went to a store, and they sold me an Eclipse system, about 10 gallons, with the Eclipse lighting. They gave me sand, live rock, a long tentacle anemone, a clown, and they said, here you go. That's it. That's what they did.
Run with it.
Yeah, run with it. That long tentacle anemone lasted for many, many, many years. I'm surprised it did last that long, especially in that Eclipse. But that's kind of how I got started. And then, just looking around, Reef Central wasn't even around, and then kind of Reef Central started, and it just took off. I mean, back when I was in Reef Central active, you could read Reef Central in a day. Now, you can't do that anymore. And Reefs to Reefs is just I think it's even bigger. Obviously, it is even bigger.
Yeah, it's sort of sad with Reef Central. It seems like it's kind of stuck in place there, and Reef to Reef has certainly become seemingly the predominant forum for the hobby these days. But forums are certainly very, very important in terms of the information that's out there. And I think it's you got to be careful sometimes in terms of the type of information that you're taking in on these forums. Some of it can be bad, Absolutely. But you have to be diligent and really do a lot of homework and talk to a lot of different people and use multiple sources to try to learn about things in this hobby that you're trying to understand.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the biggest things is that when you hit those forums, a lot of the times it's newbies helping newbies. Because the newbie gets excited. The newbie gets excited, and you got that recent experience. You did this, and you're helping out, and so you just have to be careful of who you talk to and who you listen to, and make sure that the source. If somebody tells you this skimmer didn't work, well, find out why it didn't work. It could have been a bad skimmer, or it could have been the guy put chemicals in his tank and the skimmer started overflowing, but he didn't know that, so he just says the skimmer doesn't work. So you have to be very careful about what you do. You don't buy, you don't go to a car dealer or talk to your friends and says Toyota didn't work. It's a bad car. Even then you do your due diligence. Well, what is it about the car that you didn't like? Because that there's so many things that could happen that could seem like a bad product, but it's in reality, it wasn't the product.
Right. Yep.
And I deal with that as part of the customer service and CoralVue. I do deal with that, and I have to filter that out. Sometimes it's like, when somebody asks me a question, it's like, okay, nicely way of asking. It's like, okay, so what have we done in here that is causing that problem?
Yeah, I'm sure that can present its challenges at times.
Yes.
So Carlos, in the background there behind you, looks like a kicking reef tank, and as is the case with many of my shows and guests, I ask my guests to shoot a little footage of a their reef tanks if they have one, and you were kind enough to do so.
Yes.
So what I'd like to do is we'll start playing that video, and as the video is rolling, it's about what 4 or 5 minutes, I think the video is, and yeah, just talk about. It's rolling right now, so I guess we got a little delay before it gets onto the live stream here.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Just telling everybody, I'm really bad with names. So if you ask me what particular name a coral is, I may know some of the names, but I'm an old school reefer, which is I usually know try to know the scientific name of the coral instead of the other name. But this is a 210-gallon custom-made reef octopus tank.
Oh.
So if you look at the back of the tank, actually on the back left of the tank, there's the overflow, and the overflow is about 5 inches wide by 1 inch thick. So the entire tank itself is 59 inches by 26 inches tall and 31 from back to front. So it's actually kind of like a square. It's actually quite a nice. It's a very nice tank. That's how I wanted it. The stand is 40 inches tall. So I don't have to bend over to see my tank.
Yeah.
I actually have to stand up quietly. And then it's all SPS. I mean, there's a lot of SPS. You see some LPS and softies there. I wanted a big tank that was something that that I could keep a blonde naso and an Achilles tank. Those are my fish, especially the Achilles tank, were my fish choice. So I wanted something big, and I know there's a little delay in here, but you can see there's Chicago sunburst anemones that I've had those Chicago sunburst anemones since 2016 before they were Chicago sunburst anemones. They were just sunburst anemones, or they were known as Colorado anemones because the Chicago sunburst is just a variation of it if you've heard of it. The clowns have been there for me for years, and it's just SPS. I'm a huge Montipora fan. I have Octopus 4s on each corner, and I also have Gyra's XF350s to create flow. And the tank, in terms of parameters, I keep my tank 78 degrees, 79. Calcium, I think, is about 450. Magnesium is around 1400. And then alkalinity, it ranges between 7 3/4 and 8 1/4. And I keep range. I am not the kind of person that is going to go out and chase numbers. I don't believe that you can ever get your tank to be exactly 8. So you're going to get a tank that is in the vicinity of 8, but never going to be perfectly that way. Let's see. I do have a calcium reactor that I use, and I use Reborn on my calcium reactor because I love it. It's the only way I can keep my tank at those parameters. Otherwise, I just wouldn't be able to keep up. And then in terms of additives, I add every day. I add Aquaforest A, B, and C, which are not the 1, 2, 3. It's not the balling method, but it's the chemicals, the trace elements that you would use if you're using a calcium reactor.
Yep.
So a lot of people think that Aquaforest is just balling method, but Aquaforest also has a calcium reactor where you can actually have your calcium reactor, and then you can add the 3 different elements, the 3 different bottles, just like you would if you do balling. I also do AcroPower every day, and I do Brightwell coral aminos every day. And those are the only thing. The coral aminos are the only ones that I actually have to do manually. Everything else is done via dozer.
Yeah, because with the amino acids, you got to really shake that bottle and keep them refrigerated, right, to kind of preserve them in terms of their shelf life.
I talked to Brightwell. I talked to the guys over there, and they said that they didn't tell me I had to refrigerate it. Hopefully that I don't have to do. But they said that you could put her in a doser, but the proteins with a doser you run the risk of contamination when you're changing it up. So they didn't recommend that. If you're doing that, they said to every time clean the bottle with hydrogen peroxide and put them in there for 5 days is the maximum. And it got to the point that it's like, that's way too much work. It's more work than actually just doing manually.
Do you start with kind of like the minimum recommended dose for, let's say, the Brightwell aminos, and then kind of work your way up? I mean, I know that some folks that dose aminos or other coral food can kind of get into issues with algae if you go too far above the recommended dosage.
I keep I keep good track of my phosphates and nitrates. Once a week, it's Sunday morning. Sunday morning is testing day, and what I do is I test my phosphates and I test my nitrates. Phosphates, I keep them at 0.07. That is my goal. By the end, so on Monday morning after I dose my phosphate removal, I don't use GFO. I use a different thing. It's just GFO is too much of a wild card for me.
Yeah.
You can't really dictate how much you're removing. You're hoping you're going to remove, but you really don't know. So I use a different chemical that I know exactly how many drops I need in order to bring my tank's phosphate down a specific amount.
Oh, so you're using chemical. You're not using like macroalgae?
No. Well, I use a little bit of both.
Okay.
So, but the chemical I use is for that. So I keep it at 0.7. By the time the week is over on Sunday morning, my tank might be at 1.5 phosphates, and then Sunday night I bring it back down to 0.7. In terms of nitrates, that's the thing that I've had an issue with, and it's to keep nitrates. They bottom out to my tank because of my algae scrubber, which we're going to cover a little bit later. And it just bottoms out the nitrates to the point that I actually have to add sodium nitrate back into my tank. So every day I add 1 milliliter of sodium nitrate. I have my formula of sodium nitrate,
Yep.
and that brings my nitrates up to 5 ppms.
Right.
And
So what are you using for an algae scrubber? I'm assuming some CoralVue products are on the tank?
yes. The Icecap algae scrubber is the one. I love it. It just grows algae like crazy. But the one thing I have to say, and this is from a customer service standpoint, is like the algae scrubber doesn't remove the nitrates or the phosphates. The algae scrubbers grow the algae that then removes the algae.
Right.
So if somebody has problems with the nitrates and phosphates and they want to install an algae scrubber, you got to remember the algae scrubber is not going to take effect until a month or two afterwards. So it's not going to be an immediate effect, a knee-jerk reaction to getting your phosphates down now. That's not going to work. Even if you're using biopellets, because biopellets are the media where the bacteria grows, and then the bacteria consumes the chemicals.
Right.
So you still have to allow the time. So anybody that is thinking about an algae scrubber because you have too high phosphates or nitrates right now, remember, if you add it today, you're not going to see it. You're not going to see the results until September or maybe even October.
Right, until you've got that algae growing pretty well.
Exactly.
So in terms of the Icecap, which one are you using? You said how many gallons is your tank?
210.
210 gallons. Okay.
Yes. So I use the medium one just because my tank already runs on very low nutrients. It's all there's the gallon, but you also base it on how much food you add, because the more food you add, the more nutrients are going into the tank, and the faster the algae is going to grow. So you have to play around with it. I would say if you have a tank that is in the 100 to 200, go with the medium range. You can't go wrong with that. You can always change the light cycle on them. And you don't have to run it 24/7. But that usually works, and it works great. I mean, there is no. I've had, water changes and all this. I've been in the hobby for so long. Algae scrubbers are just the way to do it, and I'm surprised that it's taken us this long to actually catch up to them.
Right. Now we're going to talk about some more stuff too, because you guys also carry some algae reactors, right? That's relatively new.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, so that's
Yes, dude.
yeah.
I used the Algae Reactor for a little while, but then this space wise, I mean, working for CoralVue and product development, it's like I use the products for about 2, 3 months, 4 months, and then I have to switch them out and try something else. So you know, part of that is surprising why the tank looks so good.
I was going to say, that's
'cause
amazing
I keep changing things around.
that is amazing. Yeah, because
But
I don't like to mess with my tank. If things are going well, I don't want to like be swapping out equipment. You know, I mean, so I commend you, Carlos, for being able to do that. That really makes it even more incredible.
yeah, I think the stability is the big key.
Yeah.
You know, you're adding algae scrubbers, you're taking out algae reactors and everything, but as long as the tank is stable in terms of parameters and your alkalinity calcium, it makes it a lot easier and a little bit more forgiving. I think I use an alkatronic for keeping my alkalinity stable, and it tests every 2 hours. So every 2 hours, I test the alkalinity in there because it's a calcium reactor. If I had a 2-part, then you know exactly how much 2-part to add to bring it up. With a calcium reactor, you don't have that. You don't have that luxury. With a calcium reactor, you turn on the calcium reactor, and it's the delayed reaction. So it's going to take about an hour before that calcium reactor starts to kick in order to do it. So I have to test every 2 hours to keep it stable. I tried it at 4 hours, and it was too much of a swing because it took too long for the calcium reactor would react, and then it was too long before you had to test to find out if the test was okay.
So I have an alkalinity monitor controller. I use the GHL, KH Director, and I dose 2 parts. So yeah, I mean, I only test twice, a day because of that. But so with a calcium reactor hooked up to the alkatronic, is it basically adjusting the CO2? Is that how it's controlling?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The alkatronic technically the alkatronic controls the CO2, the solenoid, turns it on and turns it off. Right. But with a calcium reactor, it's a little bit different how you have to do it. You have to be a little proactive. So my solenoid turns on when my alkalinity hits 8.
Oh.
Because the alkalinity is going to keep going up. So if I have to shut up the reactor, then my alkalinity is going to hit 8, and then it's going to creep up again before it starts to go down. Same thing. If it was off, then it would continue to go down, and then it would start to creep up again. So I have to allow for that little leeway in order for the thing to work. That's why it amazes me when people say I keep my tank at 8, because it's like, unless you test every minute and you have some lab grade, there's no way that you can keep a tank at a stability like linear. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, you're making me think, because I'm actually going to be starting a new tank build. I'm getting a some of my viewers know I've been talking about it. I'm going to be getting a 225 gallon. I'm calling it like a Peninsula Lagoon style tank. It's going to be 72 inches long by 36 inches wide by 20 inches tall, SPS dominant, and I think I'm going to use a calcium reactor on that and control that via the KH Director. So yeah, no, I'll have to do some more digging on that, and I'm glad you mentioned that in terms of what you're using it, how you're using it.
Yeah, I see your tank right here on the background of the video, and I think your alkalinity demand is pretty high too. At some point, it becomes.
Guess how many mLs per day I'm using for alkalinity 2-part?
I'm gonna say about 300.
Not that high.
Okay.
250.
250. Yeah, I was like, you would probably take about 300, 250. At that point, it's cost prohibitive.
It's costing me a bundle.
Yeah, unless you make your own stuff. Yeah. Which who the hell has time to create those big tubs? I remember Russell, was doing that back in the days. But no, calcium reactor seems to be it just makes my life easier.
So speaking of calcium reactors, you guys carry the Reef Octopus line of calcium reactors. So let Carlos talk about that in terms of how it compares to other calcium reactors out there, and let's also kind of get into one of the things with a calcium reactor that I know when I used to run one is that the effluent coming out of the calcium reactor, that pH is going to be lower. So there are different ways that in the past that I've done different things I've done in the past to try to elevate that pH coming out of the reactor. You could have a dual chamber, a second chamber to help absorb the CO2. You could have a calc reactor to try to bring the pH up. But first, talk about the Reef Octopus line of calcium reactors that you guys sell.
Yeah. Our line is, Reef Octopus has been around for a long time, and they've known for their skimmers. Their acrylic work is incredible. I mean, the way they weld everything together, PVC to acrylic, they're not just gluing it. If you look at a calcium reactor, there's beads of weld in there, so even with pressure, it still will work. Our calcium reactors also have DC pumps, so it makes it a lot easier for the recirculating pump to do that. And the way they recirculate, it makes it really really easy to tune. And the trick about the calcium reactor is it's not that hard to do. It's all about balancing pressures. I think one of the biggest mistakes people make is that they grab a calcium reactor and they put a feed pump on it, and then they find the biggest pump that they could find that is strong enough to push the water through the calcium reactor so it can trickle down on the other end. So imagine you have a valve at the end of at the effluent level, and you have this huge pump pushing water, and so that pressure builds up on this chamber, okay? And then you have CO2 coming in there. So if you have pressure on the chamber, you got to make sure that the CO2 pressure is the same as the pressure coming from the pump itself, in order for the CO2 to go into the chamber. Right. So people, I think what we need to remember is that it's all about pressures. You don't have to have that much pressure. You just need a small pump that can push enough water for you to trickle down outside. So the inside pressure in the chamber itself is like 2 psi. And when you keep the psi low, then your CO2 becomes really stable, the bubble count. I know a lot of people have that issue. You try to get that bubble count, it goes right. In a lot of things. But if you were to bring that pressure inside the reactor down to about 1 or 2, then you bring that CO2 solenoid pressure down to 1 or 2, and trust me, you can get pop, stable on the second, half a second. It's all about pressures. And when you keep that pressure going, then the effluent doesn't slow down, and you don't have the issue of the cavitation of CO2 inside the reactor that everybody has to constantly bleed out, because the pressure is not the same. It's not balanced.
Do you recommend using a peristaltic pump with a calcium reactor?
Yeah, it makes it a little bit easier. Okay. It makes things a lot easier. You can put it on the end. You can put it when you're feeding the reactor, or you can put it as the effluent to take out from the reactor. It makes life a lot easier. And we have Chemours has that FX STP, which can run 24/7, and it's perfect. I wouldn't recommend running a regular non-peristaltic pump, dosing pump in there, because what happens is then when you shut it off, the CO2 continues to go into the calcium reactor, and you're going to get that cavitation, because now the pressures are different. So you should really run a 24/7 pump, and if you want to shut off the reactor, you should turn off the CO2.
So if for those of us that do like to keep an elevated pH in the tank, let's say 8.1, 8.2, pH, at least as that lower limit. What would you recommend to do that if you're running a calcium reactor? Would you say go with that second chamber? Would you say get a CO2 scrubber, a calc reactor? What options do you like, Carlos?
The easiest one I found myself is a calc reactor. A calc reactor. And if you keep SPS, you know that SPS love Kaltwasser. Yeah. I don't know what's in Kaltwasser, but when you put Kaltwasser in that water, SPS just go crazy, as long as everything else is right. So that's what I do. I have a Icecap calc reactor, the medium-sized one, and then it turns on, automatically too with my alkalinity, and it puts Kaltwasser into the tank to keep that pH up. I also use a scrubber on my skimmer, which helps a little bit. And then if you get a handy CO2 monitor from Amazon, you can actually monitor the CO2 levels in your room, and and you can tell, it's like, okay, have to open that window, or I got to close that window. And we had that discussion a couple of weeks ago with Mike Paletta on the CoralVue live broadcast. So about CO2 and how to keep that tank level up.
I used to use a calc reactor with my calcium reactor from my old 225-gallon tank, which was just chock full of the SPS, and I always found that very effective. What do you recommend in terms of you know, you mentioned CO2 and windows and what have you. What if you live in a cold place like Vermont, like myself? In the wintertime, what do you do?
I live in Chicago.
Yeah.
Trust me, it is cold too. You know, it goes back to me. I don't chase numbers. You know what? It is going to go down below 7. It's not going to kill my tank.
Yeah.
It might slow down the growth, but trust me, the way things are going, I can appreciate a little break sometimes. But yeah, I don't chase numbers. If I get a few days where it went down to below 8, I don't sweat it. It's not gonna kill. It's not gonna. In my opinion, it's not gonna kill my tank. It's not gonna affect it. It's not gonna change the colors. It may stunt the growth a little bit, but not really. I mean, it'll go back.
Yep. I hear you. All right, Carlos. I've got a lot of questions for you, but I also know that folks watching are asking some questions too. So we're going to jump around a little bit here.
Sure.
Mike Johnson says, can't wait for a Hydros Control 4. Do we happen to have a planned release date?
Yes. Actually, the Control 4 will be coming out soon. We don't have a release date on that one yet. We'll tell you a little bit closer to where we are. And all I can tell you is it's looking really good. The folks that have it are very pleased with it. They've actually gave us a lot of compliments because it's incredibly intuitive. It is not hard to set up. Some of the other controllers out there, you kind of open up. If you're a newbie, you open the box and there's like, how the hell do I start with this? I don't even know where to begin. The Hydros controller, we've made it so that it really makes it that it walks you through the process of how to install certain things, and you don't have to. The way we have it is that it combines everything into one WYSIWYG instead of having you have to do different things for different reactor. Like a calc reactor has a stir and has a pump. You know, some of the controllers you have to separate that. On the Hydros, you combine that together and you set it up all together. So, you know, it's coming up. It's going to look really good, and I think people are going to be really, really pleased. I hate to be that person that says trust me, because I don't want you. I want to do that, but at the same time, you have to understand that we have to keep things pretty much tight-lipped because there's a lot of competition out there, and we can't afford to give competition a heads up.
One question from 120 Reef Keeper, Reef Bunker. No coating? Can you talk about that?
Absolutely no. Yes. Actually, that's the biggest thing about that we actually do. You know, like the type where it says if time equals, or if time 7 to 10, then on. Nope. You know, or if outlet 1 is on, then outlet 2 should be off. Nope. No coating whatsoever. No coating whatsoever. Everything is done through a WYSIWYG.
Yeah, no, that's a good thing because I've been there, done that, and it's not fun.
No. Yeah.
You're basically out there searching on forums for folks, you know, code, and then cutting and pasting and keeping your fingers crossed.
Yeah, you know, I can tell you, we've given it to several people that have no, kind of like I said, you know, it's like, hey, give this to your wife and see if she can set it up, or can you know, have your wife fix this, you know, light. And then, you know, we've heard the feedback where it says, this was easy. Even I could do this. This was intuitive. So we were pretty pleased about that. I mean, that's kind of like, and it's hobbyists. I mean, everybody that works here, including the head engineer, they have fish tanks. So it's not, we don't have that problem where the engineer comes up with something, but then technically it's solid, but then when you go and apply it to the real world, it doesn't work. So we're constantly going back and forth on that.
Yep. Okay. So Carlos, we were talking about calcium reactors and Reef Octopus. You know, is the line you guys are carrying there, and talk more about some of the other Reef Octopus products that you guys carry. You know, some of the recent releases. There's Sumps now, right? And we talked about the macroalgae reactors.
Yes. So we have those Sumps, and I can tell you, they look like Cadillacs. Those Sumps are sweet. I mean, I've seen the Sumps, and they look like it's like the Cadillac of Sumps. The acrylic work, the welding, the way corners are, the way the corners are rounded, the edges along the way are rounded so you don't get that sharp edge. I mean, the attention to detail that Reef Octopus has put into those sumps is magnificent. And the way they've done it is our coworker here, Jeremy, he's the one that actually kind of designed the sump, you know, based on what he wanted in his tank. This is what I want in my tank. This is the sump I need after, you know, running so many sumps, and then Reef Octopus kind of put it together. I do want to answer one question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I have K-Dub. I'm at 0.05 phosphates, and I'm having another stupid cyano bloom. I would say, K-Dub, check your nitrates. Your nitrates are probably out of balance. Your nitrates are really low, or they're really, really high. And that's probably why you're having that problem. So check your nitrates. At 0.05, your nitrates should be between 5 and 10 ppm. If they're too low, you're going to get cyano or dinos. If they're too high, you're going to get cyano or dinos. It's all a matter of balance.
So what can he do to you know, to rebalance? I mean, you know, is the cyano absorbing all the nitrates, and is that why that's reading so low?
You know, I'm not a chemist, so I can't, or a biologist, so I can't tell you how that works. But in my years of experience and you know, talking to friends and actually doing it, I just went through it where I saw my tank and there were a couple of patches of cyano coming up, and then I'm like, okay, cyano. I went to test my nitrates, and that's when I found out that my nitrates were bottoming out. They were at 2 ppm. Which is way, way too low. So then I started to kick up I siphoned out the cyano, because you have to siphon it off, and then kicked up the nitrates, and then the cyano didn't come back.
So did you just feed your fish more? Did you dose nitrates to get the nitrates up?
Yeah, I had to. At first I started feeding the fish, but even with feeding heavily, you know, every day, my nitrates were bottoming out. So I started adding sodium nitrate back to my tank, and I added it. The recipe I have for my particular tank, 210 gallons, I dose 1 milliliter of sodium nitrate, and it brings my ppms nitrates up by 5 ppm, and that's all it took. That's all it took, and the cyano is gone.
And you know, that's really something that you should also keep in mind also for other types of algae, problematic algae. You know, not just cyano. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. But then again, test.
Yes.
Test. I cannot, you know, full disclosure, this is a suggestion. I'm not saying do this, you know, because I don't want people emailing me as like, you kill my tank. So please test, because if you put too many nitrates, you end up with cyano. If you bottom out, you end up, it's got to be at the right ratio. And the ratio, I think the ratio is like almost 1 to 10.
Yeah.
Phosphates to nitrates.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the sweet spot. So it really doesn't matter where you are on the phosphate nitrate level, as long as they are 1 to 10.
Yep. So Carlos, Reef KPR is asking, you said earlier that you're using a chemical for phosphate control. This person is asking, what brand of lanthanum phosphate remover are you using?
I use the one that is readily available. I don't use the one made for pools. I use the one that is made for fish tanks.
Okay.
And I like it because the bottle I literally use like about maybe 10, 15 drops every Sunday night. And the bottle will last me for about 6 months.
Wow.
So compared to GFO, it's much more economical.
Go ahead.
First.
I was going to say, are you concerned in terms of using the chemical, you know, for phosphate control, that it's also pulling out some, you know, beneficial trace elements, or not so much?
You know, I'm not a chemist, but for what I know, the lanthanum only attracts the phosphate molecules.
Okay.
So it only attracts. Now, granted, when it solidifies, maybe there's some other trace elements that are caught in it. But I don't think that it actively, I don't think it's a magnet of any other trace element except for phosphate. So that's what it is. And it actually crystallizes on impact. So it's not like it's putting in the water and going around. As soon as it hits the water, it crystallizes phosphates.
Right, and that's the problem with GFO, is that it does bind more than just phosphate.
Yes, yes, yeah. So I'm not a chemist. Obviously, this is something that I've been doing for a long time. A lot of people have it where they add it once every 3 or 4 months when the phosphates get really high. I am of the thought that keep it stable. So once a week allows me to make those tweaks on phosphate levels very small, and also I'm not putting a lot of chemical into the tank at any particular time. So if something happens, it was just a minor change instead of a big drop.
Hey, one other question, circling back to the cyano thing that I just realized, and some people, will do large water changes when they have an algae outbreak. So in that case, when you have that kind of imbalance, really a large water change might not necessarily be the thing to do.
No, because even with the water change, you are especially if your nitrates are bottomed out, the water change is not going to make it. Actually, the water change is probably going to make it even worse. And if you have too many nitrates, then the ratio is still off.
Right.
So what I would say is test first. So then you have a goal, a set. It's like walking from one end from one side of the room to the other room. You walk with your eyes open.
Right.
You don't close your eyes, walk, and then open your eyes and find out where you're at. So if anybody out there that is dosing this stuff without testing, you're walking with your eyes closed.
Yep. All right, Carlos. So we're getting up to 45 minutes into the show, and we still got a lot of stuff to cover here.
I know. Okay,
and one topic that I'm certainly interested in is lighting, and you guys have an exciting new product coming out by the end of the year, the Philips CoralCare Gen 2 fixture. So give us.
I think everybody can see them. They're actually on the. If you look at my video there, you can see them on the tank, and they are running. The Philips light is running on my tank. I'm actually running a small test right now that is going to take me a few months, and that is Philip light on the right hand side and 2 Radians G4s without the shield, and I should add the shield to make it a orange, apples to apples comparison. But and that's what I'll do. I'll add the shields and to see how they do. They used to be 4, and my tank is only 5 feet long. I used to have 4 Radians on it. It is one of the benefits of working for a company.
Yeah, there you go.
You can get a nice price on the equipment. But I used to have 4. So the Philips light replaces 2, not just 1, but it replaces 2 Radians.
Wow.
2 Radians and no hot spots. And you can tell from the look of it, the reason why the Radians look brighter is because of the hot spots. Our eyes tend to go to the hottest, brightest spot in the tank, and then we use that point as comparison to everything else. So you're gonna look at this and say, oh, my left side is brighter. That's because of the hot spot. While on the right hand side, the way the lights are distributed, there is no hot spot. So the light pretty much it distributed through the entire block or the entire square instead of just a couple of hot spots.
So talk about the reflection system. It's a unique reflection system. I mean, a little birdie told me that this fixture apparently grows corals equal to T5s, but with better coloration. So talk about the reflection system and the fixture.
Well, I'm not the engineer, so what I do know is it was developed by the Germans, by Philips, the German company. And we all know, I mean, there's one thing, there's one fact that we all know, and we hate it, is that when it comes to growing SPS corals, sometimes Europeans have it hands down. I mean, the way they grow on their T5s, sometimes you see those tanks and they're absolutely beautiful, stunning corals, and then you look at the lights and you say, and they're T5s, and you're like, how? I think they've gotten to the point where they've figured out, just like the human body, you can eat as much as you can, but the human body is only going to use what it needs, and the rest of it is waste, or it goes to your hips.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, corals don't have hips.
Yeah.
So what happens is there's only so much PAR, there's only so much ultraviolet light the coral is going to use, and the rest of it is wasted in actually illumination and heat, things that you don't. So I think the Europeans have gotten really good at being very efficient in terms of coral growth to light, intensity. And that's what the lights do. In terms of the reflection, they use this new, and I don't know the technicality of it. I apologize for it, but I can tell you from looking at it, you don't have the disco effect. It's nice and even, and because the light is so nicely distributed, there are no shadows. T5s. Everybody that wants to get rid of the shadows, you put a couple of T5s in it, and it gives you that nice even spread light, and the shadows go away. You don't need the T5s with this one because of the way the lights are. I mean, the block is, I think it's like, I'm going to say it's like 13 inches by like 10, just off the top of my head. So you have this big square of light coming out where the light is evenly distributed through the entire square, instead of just a couple of spots.
So your tank is around 60 inches long?
Yes, 59 by 26 tall by 31 back to front.
So you would only need 2 of those fixtures. Is that what you're saying for the?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah. I only need 2 to do the equivalent of 4 radians. And I know this physically. I'm not saying because it's written on a piece of paper and I have to tell you that. You can look at my tank. There's only 1 on the other side, and then there's 2 radians on the left. And there used to be 2 radians on the other side. So there used to be 4 radians evenly distributed, 12 inches apart. Like they say that you should do it to get the maximum exposure.
So how long have you been using the fixture?
I've been using it for a couple of weeks, but my boss has been using it for about 3 months, and he's seen a big change of it. I mean, he's seen the color, the colors are changing, the corals are changing, and the amazing thing is some of the corals that were under the hot spots that were getting kind of bleached out, or you were getting like they're even coloring up. Sometimes you have this experience, and because I've seen your tank and it's incredibly nice. It's like sometimes you get the better coloration, not at the top, not at the bottom, but somewhere in the middle. Right.
Yeah.
That's where you get the best coloration. So think about this because at that point in the middle, the light is a little more spread out and a little more balanced instead of a hot spot. So what he's seeing now is that the entire area is getting nice color because you're not getting blasted by the lights.
Now you guys also have some other beta testers out there too, right? What kind of feedback are you getting from beta testers at this point?
We're getting good feedback. I know there's the rumor mill out there that the PAR is not that high, but again, you're mimicking a T5. You're trying to mimic what the Europeans are doing to get their tanks really nice. So, and I know America and Europe, different mindsets, but the one thing that, like I said, one thing that you cannot argue is the success that the Europeans have had using T5s.
Yeah, no, for sure. Some amazing tanks out there.
Yes.
So Carlos, let's switch some gears and talk, pumps and ice, the Icecap. You mentioned the Gyra and those pumps. So you recently had an upgraded Gyra, right? Or maybe within the last couple of years.
Yeah, well, we've had the Gyra 250, the 200 series was out for a couple of years, but now we've had the 300 series, which is a little bit nicer, and they have flow directors, so you can actually point the water towards a certain location. But what makes the Gyra so good is the fact that it's linear, so it's literally what a river does. A river doesn't have a propeller on a single spot pushing water. The water is linear and all the water moves, at different speeds, but it still moves at a horizontal sheet of water. So that's what we're trying to do with the Gyra. So it's a lot easier when you're moving a sheet of water. It's a lot easier to create a Gyra that when you have a propeller that doesn't lend itself, the physics don't allow for that Gyra to be created. Because you're constantly, just when you pick up the speed and come right back, it's turned into a single point source, and then it has to go ahead and reshape itself and then come back. So, that's where the gyres come in, and then the water starts to pick up momentum.
So talk also about some other Icecap products. You talked about the Algae Scrubber, and I think
Yes.
we talked about something else. But yeah, I mean, talk about the Icecap, other products you have in that line.
Yeah, we also have the new product that we have is the Icecap dual pump Wi-Fi controller.
Right.
And that one is also being used by it's an Icecap product, but it works with the Hydros app. So very intuitive to use, very easy to set up, and it allows you to run two pumps together. You can always hook them up to wave engine, and the wave engine is kind of like the big Cadillac of it. And I think a lot of people are having a lot of problems picturing the wave engine, because obviously there is not a product out there that is like the wave engine. There hasn't been a product out there that grabs different brand products and makes them work together. And at first it's like, oh, God forbid you make an Ecotech run with a gyre, or, oh my God, you can't do that. And it's like, as a consumer, why not?
Yeah.
So
Greg Carroll is making a comment about the Gyra. Carlos hasn't seen the
Gyra
go. Flow in my tank. And he's crying, laughing.
Yeah. I know. Thanks, Greg. Love it. Maybe next time.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I was going to say, trying to cover a lot of ground here, because you guys got a lot of products, and we got to, there's a lot of ground to cover. But
that's one thing about CoralVue. We got our hands on many cookie jars, and that's just because we're big distributors. One of the biggest things about CoralVue, and that we like to, and we boast about, is that, and I know this is end users, but we don't sell direct, so we don't compete against your local fish store. So a lot of companies out there do sell direct, and then they sell wholesale. So you're competing against the same guy that you're buying things from. With us, if you buy from us directly, you're not competing against anybody. But going back to the Hydros, one thing that we're pretty proud about the Hydros device, especially the Wave Engine and the Control 4, is going to be that they're all IP65 rated. And for those of you that don't know what IP65 rated means, it's just that you can actually splash it with water and it'll be perfectly fine. Which it just boggles my mind that it is 2020, and the most 90% of the equipment that we use in our reef tanks, they're not IP65 rated. Yeah, and yes, they're UL rated, but as soon as they find out they're using it in salt water, what happens? Things could go either way. So the best thing to do is to actually get a product that was meant to be used near this condition. So the Control 4, the Hydros Control, the Hydros Wave Engine, they're all IP65 rated. So if you splash them, if the tank leaks, God forbid it doesn't, but if it does or something like that, and you get some water in there, it's not going to damage it. So the brain, the heart of your tank, it's running in something that was meant to be used in that kind of environment.
Yeah, that application.
That application. So we like to that's one thing to boast about. And the other thing that we boast about is it's not made in Germany. It's not made in China. It's not a product that we got from another company that we're just reselling. No, the Hydros product is 100% CoralVue. It's our product. It's developed and made here in the United States.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Let's why don't we go Comore?
I'm sorry?
Why don't we go with Comore?
Oh, yeah.
Talk about Comore. Yeah. I know dosing systems are the big thing right now, and Wi-Fi dosing systems and all that. I use the Comore. I use the Comore F4 Pro Wi-Fi on my system, and that's the one that I use to dose my chemicals. So the Aquaphor stuff, I use it with the F4 Pro. I also use the one thing I forgot to tell you, Easy Booster. I use Easy Booster, and I use Easy EVO Coral Food from Easy Reefs.
Man, you're supplementing a lot of food.
Yeah, and my nitrates are still 0, and I still 2. All that food and it's that. But I use that, and I use and again, I use that because I can automate it. Working in the industry, working in the hobby, up until this year, of course, and this year has been kind of a weird year for that. But up until this year, I used to travel all the time to trade shows, and when I go all the time to trade shows, the trade show is 3 days. Yes, if you're there to watch the show or be in the show, is 3 days. But if you're there as a presenter, as an exhibitor, you have to be there a week in advance.
Yeah.
So so that requires me to be out of the house for a week and a half or sometimes 2. So, and my wife, I love my wife, but she does not care about the tank.
Oop.
I mean, she'll feed the tank, but that's about it. So I have to figure out a way to automate everything so that it keeps.
So what
going.
happens if you get an alert or something that something's out of whack? Is the wife going to be there to do you a solid or what?
One time I had a fish, let's call it a naughty fish, that started picking up on SPS tanks. So I put it in the sump, okay? And then and I meant to take it back to the fish store. Yes, and I'm not proud of this. So it was in the sump. I meant to take it back to the fish store, but then I had to get on a flight and go to headquarters, and I was there for 3 weeks.
Wow.
All right. The fish didn't make it, and guess what happens to the fish? Murphy's Law. It died, made it through the baffle, around the baffle, into the main pump return chamber. And what does it do? It goes sideways right into the main pump.
Ooh.
So the pump is running, and it's moving water, but it can't move as much water as it needs to because the fish is there. So I noticed that I was looking at the camera, and I noticed that my return is spewing air, and a lot of air. And I'm like, what's going on? And then I looked at the camera on my sump, and I saw the fish. And I'm like, hon, can you go in there and grab the fish? And she was cursing at me. Oh, my God. She's like, I'm not sticking my hand. I said, grab a plastic bag so you don't get your hands wet, and go in there and just grab the fish. And she's like, I can't believe I'm doing this. I can't. You owe me so much. You're taking me out for dinner. And took the fish out, threw it away, and then I had to take her out for dinner when I came back. But she'll do it.
Well, she came through in a pinch for you when you needed her. But
Yes.
you mentioned one thing, and I'm gonna mention it again, that you have a camera on your sump. I do the same thing. I also have a live webcam on my display tank that I run 24/7 on YouTube. But I also have the sump cam that I will run when I see, I get an alert about something going on that's, not right. So I'll be able to turn that camera on and look at it. But I think if anybody's going to invest in any kind of technology, if you're taking trips and you're away from that tank for like a week or a week and a half or 2 weeks, having some webcams on the display as well as a sump, to me, is like invaluable.
Invaluable. Also, and another thing that I'm going to say too is that make sure that you purchase good equipment. You get what you paid for.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of and this has become a trend lately where people spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on a coral frag that is the size of your pinky nail.
Yeah.
But when they turn around and spend and try to purchase a pump that is going to keep that investment alive, they go with the cheapest pump they could find, which it makes absolutely no sense to me. So FYI, guys, I'm not trying to sell you, I'm not, obviously Reef Octopus makes great pumps, but whatever pump you do your research and make sure that there's warranty on them. How long is the warranty? Reef Octopus is 2-year warranty. Are they responsive? Is there a phone number? Can you have support on them? Because at the end of the day, when the pump goes down, which is not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Let's get that clear. It's not a matter of if. Any manufacturer that tells you that the pump's not going to fail, it's lying to you.
Yep.
It's a matter of when, they're there and you can get that pump. So please, it's like, make sure you read the reviews and get something that is reliable,
Yeah, and one thing that I always do is I have a redundant pump. So I usually use 2 return pumps in case one has a failure or a fish that goes into it that, you wouldn't want that to happen.
Absolutely. How many times do you have? I'm sure you do this, and you have a friend that hopefully you have this, a friend that lives near you or somewhere in the vicinity and has an amazing tank, and you buy this really expensive frag. After a few months, it grows. Pick, snip it, and give it to hey Carlos, put this in your tank. I just in case something happens, I have a backup of it. So backup.
Right.
So the same thing. Get a pump, and then even if it's not, even if it's a smaller pump, but get yourself a backup pump, because when the things fail, you're gonna know that. And remember, things fail on a Friday night.
Yeah.
They never fail on a Monday. They never fail on a Tuesday. They always fail on a Friday night.
Yep. And I totally agree with you in terms of investing in quality equipment. The one other piece of advice I would say is that perform regular maintenance on that equipment,
Yes.
because if you do not, even with a high quality pump, it will fail as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I always tell this to my support to the customers, and it's like, Reef Octopus makes excellent pumps, but they're not indestructible. They're not indestructible. So think about it: is do maintenance. You don't drive a cart for 2 years without doing an oil change. You have to do an oil change. You have to do a tune-up. Same thing. You have something that is running 24/7. So please, every 2 or 3 months, take it out, and not just grab it, put it in a bucket, run it with vinegar, and then take it out. Take the pump apart. Yep. Look at it. Look at the magnet. Is the magnet swelling? Is the magnet cracking? Is the propeller spinning correctly? Look at all that, because that'll tell you, oh, you know what? There's a hair fracture in here. Okay, I got to get myself a new impeller, or if it's under warranty, I got to contact them, because I know that this is going to get worse in a few months. It may not work anymore.
Yep.
So please, take your time. You got a lot of money invested into this tank, into your tanks. Let's be a little proactive.
Yep. All right, Carlos. So we're like an hour into this live stream, and I know you have a hard stop at one point in time, but so I want to be respectful of your time. And
no, we're good. We're good right now.
Okay. Kyle's Reef. Carlos, is the web control for the wave engine still in the works?
Web control for the wave engine. Oh, I think, okay, Kyle, maybe you're referring to the web interface for the wave engine. Yes, we are still in the works. I mean, actually, we are using it in-house, and some of the beta testers are using it already. So it'll be released actually very, very soon. He's asking if the wave engine, the Hydros app, can you control it on the web, like through your browser, or do you have to have an app? And yes, you'll be able to control it through the web, and the web app will look exactly like the mobile device app, so you won't have to learn anything new.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes. Thanks, Kyle.
So, Carlos, you talked about Aquaforest. You guys also sell Red Sea, supplements.
Yes.
What do you guys recommend in terms of using, those supplements? I guess there's different degrees in terms of what you can do with the coral food and supplements for the tank. I mean, you talked about what you do with the Aquaforest products. If somebody is interested in kind of getting into those types of supplements, what's the kind of the best advice in terms of how you get started into that sort of line of product?
Yeah, I think what you need to do is keep things simple. KISS, keep it simple, stupid. That's what we say, or myself is like, come on, Carlos, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Come on, man. Keep it simple. Don't go crazy. And my good friend Michael Schrader, he has this thing of knee-jerk reaction. Okay, and I'm gonna go with this. It's like you've seen my tank. Okay, I'm going to use, he said he runs it at 0.07 phosphates and nitrates at 5. Let me go ahead and change that right now, and I'd be flattered if you do. I would be very flattered if you do, but don't just change things for the sake of changing them. If your tank is working and you're getting the growth that you have, then leave it. Then it's fine. But if it's, if you try to make it better, then whatever changes you make them slowly, very slowly. Aquaforest has a complete line, and they have this really cool PDF file that you can download from their website, and it tells you exactly what to do. So if you have an SPS only tank, it'll tell you what products to use. If you have an SPS and LPS, it'll tell you that. If you have fish only, or if you have ultra low nutrient tank, which is another animal, then it tells you exactly what you have. And then on top of that, it breaks it down. If you're doing balling method, then use X chemicals. If you're using a calcium reactor, then use these chemicals instead. So they make it very easy. They've actually figured out a way to break it down, because I know a lot of the chemicals out, the chemical companies out there, especially in the early years, you really had to read so many forums in order to find out how to start with them.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So you guys recently made ICP analysis testing available, correct?
Yes.
Right. And do you recommend doing ICP testing with the aquaphores?
Absolutely. And my thought is a little bit of the opposite of what most people think of the ICP testing. The way, yes, you can test ICP, you can send it to water to ICP if you're having an issue. But what you really should do is, when everything is clicking, when your tank is like, oh my God, man, it's like, holy crap, Keith, over the last 3 months, my tank is just banging, man. It is just, everything is growing, everything is colored nicely. That's when you have to do ICP testing.
Right.
Why? Because that tells you your blueprint. That tells you what levels work best for your tank. And then once you have that baseline, then if something happens, then you can test ICP and find out what are the deviations between when everything was doing really well and when things are starting to die off. What is it that is different? A lot of people tend to do ICP testing when things are going bad, which is great, but you have nothing to compare it to. So you don't get the full story.
Right. I always like to kind of do a pre, 3 different intervals, pre, during, and post, to kind of like get a good picture in terms of what's going on with the tank. And it could be when the tank is like, not, going great guns, or it could be when the tank is having some issues, or, it could be when the tank is really going well. And it's a great tool to have in the toolbox to be able to course correct if need be.
Yeah. I think it's a great tool to have, and you should do it. Obviously price wise, maybe you can't afford it to do every month, and that's okay. But if but at least you should do it a few times a year, and especially do it when the tank is doing really, really well, because that'll give you the blueprint. It's like, okay, this is what I'm aiming at.
Exactly.
This is when I know everything works. No. Everything is clicking and everything is good. I do have, I see Greg says, question for Carlos, do the new Icecap gyros also come with a shield to deflect flow like the MaxSpect? And the answer is no. But Greg, little shout out. There's a website, Noble, like being a noble person, noblereefs.com. They actually 3D print them for the Icecap gyros. So you can order them, and they're not that expensive. But Zach, over at Noble Reefs, he can actually print them and send them to you, and then put them on your Icecap gyros.
You hear that, Greg? Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, Carlos. So we're getting deeper into this thing. And what have we missed that you wanted to talk about here?
Well, let's talk about one of the things that we have, since we're in the aquaforest kind of realm of things. Aquaforest has biosand now, which you can purchase. It's got live sand in it, and then we have the frag rocks, which is it's we've seen the rocks, and they're actually really, really nice. They look pretty realistic, and they're easy to glue together, and they're very light, incredibly porous. So that's one thing that we kind of like, and we wanted people to kind of know that Aquaforest does do that. They also have new aquariums coming out, which are really nice, really nice. I'm like, they're like catalog, kind of like aquariums, and they're not that expensive. I think they're great, and they come in different colors. And the way they do the stands is like I think it's a metal stand, and it's a non-corrosive metal, but then the sides are actually, the panels can actually be removed, So you can buy different panels for different colors.
Cool. Neat. Yeah,
Different
nice.
colors. So they have the different colors in there, so you can actually have panels that match the decor, because at the end of the day, you know, those tanks have to be wife approved.
Yeah, there you go.
If you have the modern house and you have a tank with a wooden stand, that's not going to fly. It has to have a modern look for the wife to actually, or the significant other partner nowadays. You know, I don't want to be, you know, for the partner to approve it and be happy. Happy partner, happy life.
Aesthetics are certainly a big part of having an aquarium in the house with others in the house that you're sharing in the house with, or the apartment or condo, whatever townhome you have. Just trying to. Go ahead, Carlos.
I do have somebody in here that asked me if I was running the clear.
Oh yeah.
Yes, and I forgot. I was gonna get to that, and but yes, I do run the clear. I actually run 2 clears on my
Can you explain, Carlos, what that is?
Okay, so the clear is a mechanical filter fleece that is automatically removed or replenished as the fleece gets plugged up or clogged up. So think of it as a machine that is constantly replenishing the cloth in your filter sock.
It's like a roller mat.
Yeah, it's like a roller mat. I didn't want to use the name, but yeah, it's what it is. The difference between the clear and every other item, every other fleece mechanical filter out there in the market is that the clear actually can go into your filter sock hole.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. So you can retrofit it.
So you take the filter sock out, and then you put this machine in there, and then the fleece will move. The other machines out there, you either have to put it somewhere in the sump, which occupies space, or you have to put it above the sump, which a lot of people don't have, especially in the US. A lot of people don't have tall cabinets. So you can't do it. You got to put it somewhere out there. So that's the big difference on the clear. It's a really good product, and I'm gonna say it, and I've said it before. When the clear came out, we made a mistake. We did. You know, the motor wasn't big enough, and the motor kept. It wasn't big enough, and what happens is as the fleece clogged up, it got heavy, and then the motor wasn't strong enough to pull the fleece. So, and it's paper. So the longer the fleece gets exposed to water after it's clogged up, the paper starts to degrade. And as the motor pulls it up, then holes happen and snags and everything. So we screwed up. And if you look at the reviews on the clear, look at the date. And I tell you, the reviews on the clear are really bad up until a particular day. After that day, the reviews stopped. And you know how it is. Everybody's out there saying bad things, but nobody says good things. It's just the nature of the way it is.
Yeah.
It's not bad. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So we made a mistake. So I want to say that if you have a clear that you've had bad experience with, that you've got so sick and tired of it and put it in the garage, you know, take a look at the clear and look at the motor. And if you have one of the old motors that are 3 RPMs, just contact me. Even if the clear is out of warranty, I don't care. Just contact me, support@CoralVue.com, and I will send you a new clear motor, and that will make a difference. That will turn the non-working clear into a really, really nice, very good unit. Just by putting that motor. So yes, you know, a few times you hear a manufacturer or a distributor say we screwed up. So I'm saying it, we screwed up, and so that if you have one, please contact us and we'll make it good. We'll make it good.
Yeah, Ellery Wong, I don't know if you're seeing the comment. Is there an upgraded motor I can order? But
you know what, Ellery, you don't have to order. Like I said,
like if it's provide one.
You know, I will provide you. So email me support@CoralVue.com, and then let me know what model you have, and I will send you a new motor. You know, this is our very, very, very small way of making up for the incredible frustrations that you had, because the product was good in you know, technically and all that, but it just didn't deliver when it came to the real world. And once we figured out the motor, once we switched the motor, man, it just, complaints went out. I hardly have any complaints about the clear now. If I get a clear complaint or a clear support, it's because it has the wrong motor.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, Carlos. So I think we're gonna wrap it up. Is there any other final thoughts that you want to provide our viewers out there tonight?
You know, I just going over the, I wanted to emphasize on the hydros, CoralVue hydros. The controller is going to be out soon. I promise you, it's not gonna be, next summer or something like that. It's gonna be in before you even know it, and I hope it delivers. We have a lot of things in the pipeline for that controller that will come out with the controller that will make you go, huh? They'll be like, oh, or as I say, damn.
And there might be some things that you're actually using right now on the tank behind you with that.
Yes,
right? That you can't talk about.
yes. I know Keith. Emailed me and says, "Can you send me a video and let's talk about, send me a video of the equipment." And I thought I had to email Keith and I said, I can do the tank, but I can't do the equipment because there's a lot of things in there that I can't really show you. But yes, there's a lot of things that are here in my tank, and there's a lot of things that are in other people's tanks that we're running that will make it really, really cool and easy to use. We're aiming for intuitive and easy to use. I think we've learned from many companies out there that have come up with controllers, and if you really study them, they all use the same recipe. So we sat down and said, we can't use this recipe anymore. We have to make it different because otherwise we're going to end up like those companies.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, Carlos, man, thank you so much for being a guest. somebody made a comment at the beginning, is like the interviewer is being interviewed, and
yes, I know.
It was my pleasure to be to have you on the other side of the fence here. So I just wanted to thank you for being part of this show, and just give you my sincere thanks for taking the time to do this.
You're welcome. I hope I was able to help somebody out there. Just be patient. Keep it slow, and no knee-jerk reactions, as my friend Michael says it. Just don't. I told you what the my parameters are, and they work for me. And if you really look at Keith's parameters, I honestly don't know. But are they the same, similar, or are they different? One thing we've learned is that everybody keeps it differently, and everybody has success with it. It's just, I think the one thing that we all have in common is stability.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Stability is so key. If things start swinging around, especially alkalinity, then big swings in alkalinity, then good things will not happen.
Yeah, and I think everybody should, I think one of the biggest investments and the biggest investments that somebody should make, in my opinion, is that alkalinity controller or alkalinity monitor. And I don't know how you feel about that, Keith, but I think it's because most likely, if your alkalinity is stable, your magnesium, your calcium are going to be just fine. But if your alkalinity swings, then you got other problems. So having that peace of mind, that little app telling you, coming back and telling you your alkalinity is fine, it just gives me that peace of mind. And you can see the results once you get that alkalinity stable.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in the hobby, I think now it's close to 30 years. I got to figure this out. But I think one of the biggest innovations I've seen in terms of equipment in the past few years has been the alkalinity monitoring and controlling. That to me is a big game changer.
Yeah, I don't test. I don't know what your testing regimens are there, but I don't test for calcium and magnesium the same time I test alkalinity. I test alkalinity every 2 hours. I don't test for calcium and magnesium every 2 hours. I think it's a waste.
Yeah.
I don't think calcium and magnesium will move as much. I don't understand why companies out there make you test all three. It seems to me that they're trying to sell you more reagent. So I would say, your alkalinity tells you everything. And if your alkalinity is bad, then you're going to look into calcium and magnesium. But if you test your calcium and magnesium if you test your calcium once a week and your magnesium once a month, you'll be fine. I think, in my opinion. In my tank, my tank is pretty stable. Your tank is pretty stable too.
Yeah, years and years ago, I did not test for phosphate. I did not test for magnesium. I tested alkalinity and calcium and nitrate, and that was about it.
Well, I remember and this going back, I remember, installing calcium reactors and really not understanding their relation to alkalinity and things like that. They would just put the calcium reactor there and it'll work. And we would connect the calcium reactor, and I'm telling you, that alkalinity probably swung between 7 and 11 in 5 days. I am surprised that 2001 tank was actually that good looking.
Yeah, that's a big swing for sure.
Because I never tested. It was one of those things. I was young, and it's like, testing. Who needs testing? I just read my tank. And that's one thing that we didn't touch upon is reading your tank.
Yeah.
And I hate to say this, but the old timers, you and I know that at the end of the day, there are certain corals in your tank that tell you they tell you exactly what's going on. I have a honeycomb acropora from battle corals, and that usually gets a little brown when my phosphates are high.
Yeah.
And remember, we used to have xenia in our tanks to tell us how the pH was doing, all those things.
Yeah, no, exactly. Observation is so important to be able to observe that tank on a daily basis. And I got a couple of canaries in the coal mine myself in terms of corals that, will start kind of like stressing out before everything else. And it's so very much important thing to do is to make sure you're observant.
Yeah, read your tank. At the end of the day, a lot of people ask me, especially in customer support, it's like, I have the 2 gyres and I need to install them. What's the best place to install them? And sometimes I feel bad when my answer is, well, you tell me.
Yeah.
It's your tank. Everybody's tank is different. What do you have? Fish, corals, try different things. I can tell you where to start, but at the end of the day, test, and your tank will tell you what it likes and what it doesn't.
Yep.
And
with that, we're gonna end it. But Carlos, again, thank you so much, and I really appreciate you being a guest on the show. So the next Rappin with ReefBum live stream will be next Thursday, July 30th at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and my guest will be Dana Riddle. So that'll be a really good show. I'm sure we're gonna be talking we'll probably be talking a little bit about lighting in that show. But so everybody, please tune in next week to that show. And Carlos, again, thank you so much for being a part of this. And I hope everybody, is well and stays safe. So until next week, adios.
Thank you.